Ethan never thought life would bring him here, among the stars, living side by side with a being from another world. When he first stepped onto the Galactic Exchange Station, everything felt unreal. The polished silver walls, the endless halls of glass, the strange scents of alien food, and the quiet hum of machinery that kept thousands of species alive in the void of space. For him, it was both exciting and terrifying. He was one of the very first humans chosen to live here, to learn, to share, and to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. At first he worried. Would the other species look down on him? Would they mock humans for being so new, so fragile compared to them? But all those thoughts faded the day he met Lyra, his assigned roommate. She was from a race called the Veyari, tall, graceful beings with skin like liquid silver that shimmered softly under light. Her large, luminous eyes glowed faintly in shades of pale blue, and her voice carried a strange musical quality like wind passing over crystal. At first sight, she seemed almost unearthly, too perfect, too untouchable. Ethan remembered thinking that she would never want to share space with someone as clumsy and ordinary as him. But to his surprise, Lyra was kind. She greeted him with a bow of her head, a gesture of respect among her people, and said, "We share walls now. Let us learn each other." Her words were simple, but they carried a warmth that made Ethan feel less like a stranger and more like a welcome guest. Over the months, they built a strange rhythm together. Lyra was endlessly curious about humans. She would ask him questions that made Ethan laugh, like why humans put tiny green leaves on their food, or why they wore layers of cloth when they had heating units to keep them warm. Ethan would try to explain, sometimes fumbling for the right words, but she listened closely, always smiling in her quiet, graceful way. One time she had asked him about Earth's oceans. Ethan described the crashing waves, the endless horizon, the salty smell of the air. Lyra closed her eyes and listened, and when he finished, she whispered, "Your world sings loudly. I would like to hear it one day." In return, Lyra told Ethan about her people. The Veyari came from a world covered in crystal forests that caught the sun and scattered it into a million colors. Their bodies had natural defenses, a kind of hardened skin that shimmered under stress, making them almost impossible to harm in normal conditions. To Ethan, it sounded amazing. To Lyra, it was simply life. Despite their differences, they grew comfortable together. Their quarters became a place of laughter, shared meals, and late-night talks under the faint glow of the station's artificial stars. Ethan had even taught her how to make instant noodles, which she claimed tasted like salt and mystery. He thought she was joking, but she ate them anyway with quiet delight. Yet in the back of Ethan's mind, there was always a thin line he never crossed. They were close, yes, but they were also different. He respected her culture, her beliefs, and her space. He knew that among the Veyari, privacy was sacred. They never showed their bodies completely, never exposed themselves outside of ceremonial bonding. To them, it was unthinkable to be seen vulnerable. Ethan understood that, and he never wanted to make her uncomfortable. But fate has a strange way of ignoring rules. One morning, after a long night of studying alien languages, Ethan stumbled out of bed groggy and half asleep. He headed for the shower, humming to himself, and let the hot water wash over his tired body. It was nothing unusual, nothing he thought twice about. When he finished, steam filled the small chamber, and he grabbed a towel, wrapping it loosely around his shoulders. He stepped out, moving toward his side of the quarters, expecting privacy. But the door slid open with a soft hiss, and there, standing in the doorway with a datapad in hand, was Lyra. Her glowing eyes widened, freezing in place as they landed on him. For the first time since they had met, the space between them wasn't filled with laughter or questions. It was filled with silence, sharp and heavy. Ethan's heart stopped. His face burned with sudden embarrassment. He fumbled for the towel, pulling it desperately around himself. "Lyra, I thought the door was locked." But she didn't move. She didn't even blink. Her eyes, glowing softly like frozen stars, stayed fixed on him, on his exposed, vulnerable human form. And in that moment, Ethan saw something in her expression he had never seen before. It wasn't disgust. It wasn't amusement. It was something far more complicated. And that was the moment everything began to change. Ethan froze where he stood, his body stiff as stone, towel clutched to his chest as though it could erase the awkward reality. His heart thudded so loudly, he wondered if she could hear it. In the quiet hum of the room, the only sound was the faint hiss of steam drifting from the bathroom. Lyra did not move. She stood at the doorway, her long silver fingers tightening around the datapad she carried. Her luminous eyes, normally calm, curious, or warm, now held a strange, unreadable look. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as though she had forgotten how to breathe. Ethan wished the ground would swallow him whole. Being seen naked by a friend was embarrassing enough on Earth. But this wasn't Earth. This was the galactic station, and Lyra was Vayari. Her people valued privacy above all else. To her, this must be more than embarrassing. It must be an insult. He tried to speak, but his voice stumbled over the words. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... I thought the door was locked. His cheeks burned so hot that he thought his skin might ignite. Still, Lyra did not move. Her eyes traced over him once more, and then she whispered, almost too soft for him to hear. Unshielded. The word made no sense to him at first. He blinked. What? Her gaze flicked up to meet his, sharp and heavy, as if he had revealed some forbidden truth. You stand there, with nothing. No scales, no armor, no shielding field, just flesh. Just skin. Her voice trembled, caught between awe and disbelief. Ethan frowned, gripping the towel tighter. I mean, humans are just like this, that's normal. But to Lyra, it clearly wasn't normal. Her silver skin shimmered faintly, a sign of deep stress among the Vayari. She looked away, pressing a hand over her chest as though something inside her hurt. I didn't know, she whispered again. Ethan opened his mouth to explain, to laugh nervously and brush it off, but the moment felt too heavy for jokes. She turned quickly, her body rigid, and left the room. The door slid shut with a hiss, leaving Ethan standing in silence. He sat down on the edge of his bunk, burying his face in his hands. His chest felt tight, his stomach twisted. What had just happened? To him, being caught naked was humiliating, sure, but nothing more. For her, it had seemed like something else, something deeper. The rest of the day passed in an uncomfortable fog. Lyra didn't return to their quarters until late, and when she did, she kept her eyes down, speaking only when necessary. The easy warmth between them, the laughter, the shared meals, the late-night talks was gone. Ethan lay awake long after she had gone to her side of the room. He could hear the faint rhythm of her breathing. He remembered the look in her eyes when she saw him. It wasn't disgust and it wasn't anger, it was something stranger, something heavier. He couldn't shake it. The next morning was no better. When he greeted her with a quiet "good morning," she nodded but did not smile. She busied herself with her datapad, her elegant silver fingers tapping quickly across its surface. Every time he tried to speak, she cut the conversation short. I am busy. Later. I have studies. The excuses were polite, but the distance was clear. Ethan felt a deep ache in his chest. He had lost something precious in a single moment. He didn't even understand why. Finally, that evening, he couldn't bear the silence anymore. She sat near the wide station window, staring out at the endless stars, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Ethan walked over, his steps hesitant, and sat across from her. Lyra, he said softly. Please. Talk to me. I don't understand what I did wrong. Her eyes flickered to him, and for a moment he thought she would ignore him again. But instead she sighed, the sound low and heavy like glass cracking. You did nothing wrong, she said, her voice quiet but firm. It is I who am unsettled, Ethan frowned. Unsettled? By me? Her eyes met his, luminous and unreadable. By what I saw? by what it means. You are different, Ethan. So very different. And I do not yet know how to carry what I now understand about your kind. She stood then, her tall frame bathed in starlight, and walked slowly toward her side of the quarters. Before stepping through the door, she paused and said one last thing. When I looked at you, I did not see shame. I saw fragility. And yet you stand. You live. I must think on this. The door closed behind her, leaving Ethan staring at the stars she had left behind. His chest tightened with a mix of confusion and fear. What had she seen in him that he, himself, had never noticed? The silence between them stretched like a wall, invisible yet impossible to ignore. Ethan felt it every time he walked into the room. Before the accident, Lyra would greet him with a small smile, or at least a curious question. Now her eyes rarely met his. She sat for hours with her data pad, her silver fingers moving quickly, her glowing eyes fixed anywhere but on him. It hurt more than Ethan wanted to admit. He had grown used to her presence, her voice, her quiet laughter that reminded him of chimes in the wind. Their room had once been alive with conversation, her asking about Earth's oceans, him describing the salty breeze and the sound of waves crashing on rocks. Now all that was gone. He replayed the moment in his mind again and again. The way she had looked at him, the tremble in her voice when she said, unshielded. It hadn't been disgust. It hadn't been anger. It was something heavier, something that scared him because he didn't understand it. Finally, one evening, Ethan couldn't bear the silence any longer. He stood in the middle of the room staring at her as she sat by the window, bathed in the glow of distant stars. Lyra, he said, his voice unsteady but firm. Please, tell me what's wrong. What did you see that day? Why are you avoiding me? She didn't answer at first. Her luminous eyes stayed fixed on the stars, as if they held all the answers she was too afraid to speak. Then slowly, she turned her head, her gaze meeting his. I am not avoiding you, she said quietly. I am avoiding myself. Ethan blinked, confused. What does that mean? Her voice trembled, though her words were measured. Among my people, we are never seen without our shielding. Our bodies are protected from the moment of birth. To show oneself completely, it is considered the greatest form of trust. To see you without any protection, it unsettled me. It forced me to see humans in a way I never expected. Ethan frowned, gripping the edge of his chair. But I wasn't trying to show you anything. It was an accident. Just me being careless. She shook her head gently, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. You do not understand. Your body carries nothing to guard you. No scales, no plates, no natural armor. Your flesh is soft, a blade, a fall, even the cold can harm you. And yet, her voice cracked slightly and she looked down at her hands. And yet you live as if you are unafraid. You step into the universe with only this fragile shell. I could not stop thinking about it. Ethan sat back, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He had never thought of himself that way. To him, being naked was just embarrassing, not profound. But to Lyra, it was something deeper, something that shook the very way she saw humanity. She continued, her voice softer now. I realized I had misjudged you, Ethan. I thought humans survived because of technology, or because you hid behind walls and weapons. But seeing you like that, I understood. You survive because you dare to be fragile, because you do not let weakness stop you from moving forward. That is what unsettled me. Not shame, not anger, but respect, and something like fear. Her words sank into him, leaving him speechless. He had never imagined that the simple accident of being seen naked could mean so much. He felt a strange mix of pride and sorrow. Pride that his species could inspire such awe, and sorrow that it had driven a wedge between them. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. Lyra, I don't want this to come between us. You're my friend. I don't care what happened, I just don't want to lose that. For the first time in days, her expression softened. She looked at him with those glowing eyes, and there was something gentler in them now. I do not wish to lose it either, but I must learn how to carry this truth about you. It is not simple. Ethan nodded slowly. He could feel the distance between them, but also the possibility of healing. It would take time. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he thought about her words again. You dare to be fragile. He had never considered his humanity that way. But maybe, just maybe, that was what made humans special. Not their weapons, not their machines, but their willingness to keep going despite being breakable. It wasn't the answer he wanted right away, but it was the beginning of something new. And Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the accident had changed not just their friendship, but everything. The days after their talk stretched long and heavy. Ethan thought that maybe, after Lyra had spoken her truth, things would return to normal. But they didn't. Yes, she no longer avoided him completely. She answered when he spoke, she shared meals at the same table, but the warmth between them was gone. There was a carefulness now, a quiet barrier she kept between them. She spoke politely, but without the laughter that used to light up her words. Ethan noticed the silence most during the little things. When he cooked, she no longer leaned close to ask questions about the smell or the taste. When he told stories of Earth, her eyes no longer widened with wonder. Even when she smiled, it felt restrained, as if she was holding herself back. It tore at him slowly. He had thought of her as a friend, maybe the closest friend he had ever had in this vast alien place. Now he felt as if she were slipping away, not because of anger, but because of something far harder to fight. Distance born of fear and respect. At night he lay in his bunk and listened to the quiet hum of the station. He could hear her breathing from across the room, soft and steady. Yet it felt as though she were 1,000 miles away. He remembered the way she used to sit beside him, her eyes glowing faintly as she asked endless questions. He missed that. He missed her. One evening, unable to carry the weight any longer, Ethan stood by the window where she often sat. She was there now, gazing out at the endless black sea of stars. The faint glow of the galaxy painted her silver skin in shades of blue and white. She looked almost like she belonged to the stars themselves, untouchable and far away. Lyra, Ethan said softly. She didn't turn. Yes? He hesitated, his chest tightening. I can't do this anymore. At that, she finally turned to look at him. Her luminous eyes were calm, but there was a flicker of something else in them. Sadness, maybe, or guilt. Do what? This, he said, gesturing between them. This distance. You're here, but you're not really here anymore. You're polite, but you're not you. I feel like I lost my friend the moment that accident happened, and I don't know how to fix it. Lyra's eyes lowered. For a long moment she said nothing, and Ethan thought maybe she would retreat again, slip away into silence. But then she sighed, her voice carrying a weight he hadn't heard before. You did not lose me, she said gently. But I am struggling, Ethan. The moment I saw you that way, I could not unsee it. You were unshielded, fragile, yet you stood before me without fear. It forced me to see you differently. I no longer look at you as I did before, and that change frightens me. Frightens. Ethan swallowed hard. Frightens you how? Her glowing eyes lifted, meeting his. They shimmered faintly like water touched by light. Because I respect you more than I ever expected. Because I feel something I cannot name. And because I do not know how to carry those feelings without breaking the bond we already have. The words hit him like a storm. For a moment he couldn't breathe. Respect? Something she couldn't name. He hadn't expected this. He had thought she was disgusted, or maybe angry. But this was something else, something more complicated, and somehow more dangerous. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low but steady. Lyra, I don't want distance. I don't care if you see me differently now. I just want the truth. I'd rather have the real you, even if it's complicated, than lose you to silence. Her silver skin shimmered faintly, a ripple of emotion across her body. She stared at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face as if trying to decide if he truly meant it. Then slowly, she nodded. "The truth, then," she whispered. "The truth is that humans are not what I thought. You are not weak. You are terrifying in your fragility. Terrifying and beautiful. And I fear if I draw too close, I will not know how to let go." Ethan's heart pounded. Her words carried both distance and closeness, fear and longing. He didn't fully understand, but he knew one thing. Whatever had begun the day she saw him exposed, it had already changed their bond forever. And though he didn't know where it would lead, he knew he couldn't let the distance win. That night, as the station drifted silently through the stars, Ethan lay awake with a single thought echoing in his chest. Sometimes the hardest walls to break are not built of stone or metal, but of fear, respect, and the risk of being truly seen. The next day felt different. Lyra still carried her calm, graceful presence, but something in the air between them had shifted. Ethan sensed it in the way she glanced at him now, not with avoidance, but with quiet intensity, as if she was waiting for the right moment to speak. That evening, when their room was quiet and the station lights dimmed into night mode, Lyra finally broke the silence. She sat cross-legged on the floor near the wide viewing window, the stars beyond reflecting off her silver skin like 1,000 tiny lights. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with coldness, but with a softness Ethan hadn't seen in days. "Ethan," she began, her voice low, almost hesitant. "Do you know why the Veyari never show themselves fully?" He shook his head slowly. "I know it's considered private, sacred even, but not why." Her fingers curled together, her glowing eyes dropping to her hands. "It is because our shields are part of who we are. From the moment we are born, our bodies grow with armor woven into our skin. It is not just for survival. It is our pride, our strength. To be seen without it is to admit weakness. To show yourself unshielded is to give another power over you. That is why it is only done in bonding rituals, between souls who trust each other completely." Ethan listened closely, his chest tightening with every word. He realized now how much weight that one accident carried for her. What was embarrassing for him was nearly a sacred event for her. And yet, she paused, her voice trembling as she looked up at him again. "You live every day as if you are already unshielded. You walk the galaxy with nothing to guard you. I had thought humans must be protected by hidden technology, some invisible field I did not understand. But when I saw you, I realized the truth. You carry nothing, just skin, just fragile flesh." Ethan swallowed hard. Her words dug into him, not with insult, but with awe. "I could not understand it at first," Lyra continued, her voice gaining strength. "To me, it was terrifying. To think of walking the world without protection. It would break most Veyari minds. But then I thought of you, Ethan, of how you laugh, how you tell stories, how you eat food that could burn your tongue or freeze your lips. You live with risk every moment, yet you do not let it stop you. You dare to be fragile. That is what I could not carry easily." Her voice cracked, and for the first time since they had met, Ethan saw her as vulnerable too. She was not just the graceful alien who shimmered like moonlight. She was someone wrestling with her own understanding, someone shaken by the truth of what she had seen. Ethan moved closer, lowering himself onto the floor across from her. The stars stretched endlessly behind her, but all he saw was her. "Lyra," he said softly, "I never thought of myself that way. To me, it's just life. Humans are fragile, yes, but we've always known that. Maybe that's why we try so hard. We don't live because we're invincible. We live because we know how easy it is to break, and we choose to keep going anyway." Her luminous eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, silence stretched between them. Then she let out a quiet breath, almost like a sigh of release. "You make it sound strong," she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe it is. Maybe strength isn't about what you're made of. It's about what you do, even when you know you can be hurt. For the first time in many days, her expression softened fully. The distant sadness faded, replaced by something warmer, something more human-like. She looked at him not as a fragile creature, but as someone she could finally understand. "You have given me much to think about," she said gently. "Perhaps humans are not weak at all. Perhaps you are the bravest of us all." The words hit Ethan deeply, more than he expected. He felt his chest tighten, not with shame this time, but with a strange, quiet pride. To be seen that way by her meant more than any award or recognition the Galactic Exchange could offer. That night, as they both sat by the window in silence, something in their bond shifted again. It was no longer about curiosity or simple friendship. It was about respect, fragile but real, born from the strange accident that had once threatened to break them apart. And for the first time, Ethan thought that maybe the accident had not ruined things. Maybe it had given them something far stronger. In the days that followed Lyra's confession, the air between them began to soften. The silence that once felt like a wall slowly dissolved, replaced with something new, something heavier, yet more alive. She no longer avoided Ethan. Instead, she began to study him again, but not with the innocent curiosity she once had. Now her eyes lingered longer, as though she was trying to see beneath his skin, to understand the mystery she had discovered. Ethan felt her gaze often, when he laughed, when he cooked, even when he stretched tiredly after long study sessions. It was not uncomfortable, but it carried weight. One evening, as they shared a simple meal, instant noodles for him, and a Veyari fruit that glowed faintly in the dark for her, she set her food aside and leaned forward. "Ethan," she said, quietly, "tell me, what does pain feel like to you?" The question caught him off guard. He blinked, setting his chopsticks down slowly. "Pain? Why do you ask?" Her luminous eyes glowed softly, reflecting the faint light of the room. "Because your kind has no shields. Your flesh is soft. You bleed. You bruise. And yet you live as if pain is nothing. How do you endure it? How do you keep going when it comes?" Ethan stared at her, surprised by the depth of her question. He thought for a moment, searching for the right words. Finally, he held up his hand, showing her a faint scar across his palm. "See this? I got it when I was a kid. I grabbed a piece of broken glass without thinking. It hurt, badly, but I healed. And now it's just a mark. Pain is like that. It hurts, but it also teaches. It reminds us to be careful, but it also shows us that we can survive." Lyra leaned closer, her glowing eyes fixed on the scar as if it were a sacred text. She reached out slowly, her long silver fingers hovering just above his skin, but not quite touching. "Your body remembers the wound, and yet you still use your hand. You do not hide it away." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's what humans do. We carry our scars, but we don't let them stop us. Sometimes they even make us stronger." Lyra's gaze lifted to his face, her expression unreadable but full of quiet wonder. "Among my people, scars are seen as failure. To show weakness is shame, but you wear it openly and you smile." Ethan chuckled softly. "Well, sometimes we don't smile. Sometimes it's hard. But we keep trying. That's the difference, I think. We're fragile, but we don't let fragility rule us." Her eyes softened and she tilted her head slightly. "Perhaps that is why you survive where others fall. You are not built for strength. You are built for endurance." The words lingered in the air, sinking deep into Ethan's chest. He had never thought of himself that way, but hearing it from her, hearing her speak with such respect, made him feel strangely proud. Later that night, as they sat together by the viewing window, Lyra continued her quiet questions. She asked about bruises, about sickness, about the strange human habit of pushing past exhaustion just to finish a task. Ethan answered each one with simple honesty, telling her about broken bones, about headaches, about running in the rain until his lungs burned. He explained that humans often tested their limits, not because they wanted pain, but because they wanted to see how far they could go. Lyra listened to every word with deep focus, her glowing eyes shimmering faintly in the dark. "It is strange," she whispered finally. "To us, pain is something to fear, to avoid at all costs. But you humans, you almost embrace it. You let it shape you." Ethan shrugged softly. "I guess it's because we don't have a choice. If we stopped every time something hurt, we'd never move forward. Pain reminds us we're alive. It means we're still fighting." Lyra turned her gaze back to the stars beyond the window. For a long moment she said nothing, but Ethan saw her silver skin shimmer faintly, a sign of deep emotion. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet, almost fragile. "You frighten me, Ethan. And yet, you inspire me. I thought my people were strong, but now I see strength in a form I never imagined." Ethan's chest tightened at her words. He didn't know what to say, so he simply sat beside her in silence, their shoulders almost touching. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but, for the first time, the distance between them felt smaller, like a bridge had been built across a gap that once seemed impossible. In that moment, Ethan realized the accident had not only changed how she saw him, it had changed how he saw himself. And deep inside, he felt that their bond was no longer just about curiosity or friendship. It had become something greater, forged in fragility and strength alike. The night was unusually quiet in the city-sized dormitory hub. Ethan sat by his desk, his books spread out, trying to focus on studying. Lyra rested near the viewing window, her glowing eyes watching the stars in her silent, thoughtful way. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. A sharp hum passed through the walls, and the station shuddered as if struck by some invisible hand. The power cut out, plunging the room into darkness. A deep alarm blared. Ethan jumped to his feet. "That's not good." Lyra stood immediately, her silver skin faintly glowing in the dark. "Emergency protocol," she whispered. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. The outer sector must have been hit. The air suddenly felt colder. The artificial systems that kept them safe, the air regulators, the gravity stabilizers, were failing. Ethan could already hear the hiss of a broken vent somewhere in the hallway. Lyra's luminous eyes widened. "We must go. If the air thins..." But before she could finish, the room shook violently. A panel above collapsed, scattering debris across the floor. One sharp piece of metal struck Lyra's leg, slicing through her glowing skin. She cried out, collapsing to her knees. "Lyra!" Ethan rushed to her, ignoring the alarms. He lifted the debris and pulled her up. Her blood shimmered faintly, glowing silver as it ran down her leg. Her hands trembled as she pushed against him weakly. "Go. Leave me. You will not survive if you stay." Ethan tightened his grip, his jaw hard. "No, I'm not leaving you." Her glowing eyes met his in shock. "But you are fragile. You are breakable. You will die." Ethan's chest burned with the force of his words. Maybe. But humans don't abandon the ones they care about. We hold on, even when it hurts. He tore a strip from his own shirt and pressed it against her wound, ignoring her protests. His heart pounded, lungs tightening as the oxygen levels dropped, but he didn't let go.